Good Friday morning. We've got a special guest joining us today from the Boston area, Kanako Tone. And Kanako has got an incredible background operationally that I think you're going to get a ton of value in our discussions. But before we get there, as I normally do, teeing this up, my co-host Meg Heuer and I have been running 300 plus of these episodes over the last 3 years. In the upper corner, and all the episodes are around go-to-market strategies, ABM, which was what we really started the conversation around, Account-Based Friday. But the videos range from anything operationally and strategically, from sales to SDR to AI, anything that really touches go-to-market. And you'll see in the upper corner there a QR code. The QR code brings you right to those 300 videos. And if you have a specific question, you can always ask Meg or I. Meg, who formerly ran Serious Decisions Research and a former CMO, and myself, we pulled these, or curated these 300 plus videos on these topics to really help you. But of course, if you have a specific question, you can ask either one of us, and we can dial into kind of the exact video that may be of most help to you. Of course, we always encourage liking and subscribing to the videos so you get caught up on the latest and greatest around go-to-market strategies. One of the reasons I'm excited about Kanako joining us today, she and I had met at a networking event probably close to a decade ago with over 8 years of experience in operations. And it's very rare in my experience to find someone who has been able to bridge the gap from marketing operations, where I first met her, and now into revenue operations, where she currently sits in PathFactory, and kind of understanding both languages of the operations side. And as I was thinking about it, Kanako was probably the best example that I could think of somebody who could talk about the different flavors of operations. And her journey is pretty incredible too, going from another country to here in the U.S. after high school, and then pursuing a career in the Boston area. It's pretty amazing and takes a lot of courage. So first of all, I want to welcome you, Kanako, to the stage. And maybe we could just start and talk a little bit about the operations side of the definition of how you see marketing ops, RevOps, maybe even sales ops. Like what is it that you see there, out of curiosity?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thank you for having me. So exciting to chat about all these fun stuff in ops. So as John said, I started my ops career about almost 10 years ago. I just had to look back my LinkedIn. I was surprised, by the way. I've been doing this for almost a decade. Back in the time, sounds old, marketing operation, at least the way I was doing, or the way I was introduced to do, was looking back more like a campaign operations, more like a get things done, get the emails out of the door, get the webinar going, that kind of things. But as my career progressed, and also partially because I've been mostly in the smaller companies where I was not just a marketing ops, but doing all kinds of ops or get things done department, pretty much, for the GTM teams, I naturally expanded my horizon to cover sales ops and supporting CS team, supporting support team, finance, legal, whoever touches customers eventually. And that progression and journey formed my definition of RevOps. Like RevOps still may be like a sales ops or focusing on the operation factor on the pre-sales side of the ball game. But in my opinion, it's not just pre-sales. Like our job as ops doesn't end when the first deal gets closed. We want to make sure, first of all, first deal gets closed and that gets tossed to the finance so we can collect money. That's important. But more importantly, what happens after? What's onboarding? What happens in customer success? How the account management may interact with customers, and eventually how that would all these work would be translated into the future revenue, which is renewal, upsell, expansion, what have you. Yeah. And RevOps, in my opinion, is in a very unique position to be able to see all these things across the board. Yeah. And sometimes they connect the dots that, hey, if this in the post-sales world, CS and AMs are doing certain things, what can we do from marketing perspective to support that? oh, hey, marketing is trying to launch some customer marketing. Are we communicating that with the ones who are actually facing customers so they are aware what's going on? Even that level of alignment or lack thereof could cause some like conflict or, you know, this unsatisfaction with that kind of things internally or externally. And I think RevOps is in the spot to really point that out and figure things out and make it as smooth as possible. So that's a long answer.
But operations is a complicated function, right? I think it's got a lot of and has had a lot of definitions, over the years and kind of over the decade that you've been doing it. What would you say has changed in terms of the way that you think about the role of operations and sort of how it's evolved from being sort of functional ops like marketing ops or sales ops to being rev ops and having that bigger picture? What would you say are some of the big changes you've seen?
I think one thing that changed through my career is like being more tactical focused versus more strategic focused. Well, to be honest, since I prefer to work in the small companies where I don't get to have a huge team with me or under me, I usually do the tactical things too. And I still don't drop that tactical execution piece of the ops. But still, I try to put together a roadmap. I put together the communication plan with stakeholders so that we can communicate the body of ops to the stakeholders and support the strategic decisions and strategic directions that companies moving towards. Yeah. So that's definitely a big different area. The other area is, well, when I started doing the ops, I would say the tech landscape was still relatively smaller and so like contained for say martech, meaning really like martech, while it has expanded and marketing may even cover, for example, BDRs, and then the sales related tech may come like adjacent with marketing ops world, right? And then when we expand the ops horizon to RevOps, oh my gosh, that is like pretty much like the limit is the sky like level of expansion. And that's actually an exciting factor for me too, because now I get to see so many things. I get to see so many data structures and data points, and I can just be creative. Like, how can I connect all these data points, for example, to analyze things and bring it back to strategic discussion? How can we leverage these data points so that this side of the house and that side of the house can connect their work easier and work seamlessly? Like that kind of things have been really the different since I started this kind of gigs.
It sounds to me like you're almost doing that translation of getting the two sides of the houses speaking a similar language and kind of illustrating the impact. So I think you bring up a really good point about bringing those two different points of view together. It made me think a little bit about your role because you've had success with marketing ops and rev ops, and the skills are a little bit different. Where do you think marketers, like in my experience, like marketers just may not have a full understanding of the rev ops functions? What skills could marketing ops develop further to kind of move toward bringing those houses together? Or what advice would you give to bring those houses together in a way that they are doing that translation?
That's a great question, and I really like the way you put that ops work is more like translation. And yeah, I can speak about it like forever coming from different country too, but actually, I don't think marketing ops and RevOps are drastically different from the required skill set. At the end of the day, we need to be analytical. We need to be strategic. We need to be able to read the data and pull out the stories and narratives and basically bring that back into the strategic decision making. Depending on the roles or responsibilities, both marketing ops and RevOps people needs to be somewhat technical. Well, the degree of technicality may vary. Like, for example, I don't do hardcore coding, but I'm dangerous enough to break Salesforce. Yeah, sorry, my colleagues. But that kind of things. At the end of the day, I think these things is similar skill sets required both for the RevOps and Marketing Ops. And the application of these skills may be different. Like looking at win rate versus conversion rate, dealing with the typical sales ops type of things like quota attainment, etc., which may be a little bit of foreign concept from marketing side. But as you get hang on to the concept and the philosophy, at the end of the day, it's some level of math, some level of data. And when we deal with data, we need to figure out data integrity. Sounds familiar topic both in marketing ops and RevOps. To do the data integrity, we need to have a better process, better system process and a business process. And we need to train people to do certain things. That's similar each other. Yeah. So that's how I see about it. And still, even seeing that kind of similarity, I'm fully aware that I have a lot of blind spots. Like as you said, I grew up from the marketing ops, like started roaring into sales ops and beyond. I know, for example, like I'm not specialized, for example, in the CS ops. I'm still trying to learn there. I'm still trying to support the support teams. And I know the basic concept of what kind of metrics they may need, what kind of processes they may need. But I'm pretty sure that I'm not in a spot to consult them like fully yet. I'm still learning. And that kind of open-mindedness and curiosity to learn is actually the very, very fundamental piece that both marketing ops and RevOps people need to have.
I think that's a really important point, and I think that's how we grow in our careers and just as people, right? Is staying curious and staying willing to learn. What are some of the resources or ways that you like to learn? So use the example of needing to support customer success and support in general right now, and that not being your background. So you're needing to go in and start to kind of understand what they need. What would your advice be to someone in a similar role? I'm guessing there's RevOps people in that role too, whether they came from sales or marketing. Now they're asked to support post-sale. What are some of the ways you're learning, and what recommendations would you make to others?
Yeah, sure. First of all, I would just go talk to people. If you're in an in-house role, it's sort of like easy that you can just go talk to the stakeholders, like sales lead, marketing lead, CS lead, who have you, right? And go talk to people and what's in their world, basically. Yeah, I even had that kind of conversation with finance leader at some point because I seriously didn't understand what they care about. But the project I was delivering had a huge overlap with their process. Like I got understand what they're thinking, what's in their mind. So at one point, I had a 50 minutes long talk about what is finance audit. Like why that kind of keyword pops up all the time when we build a process. Like educate me. That kind of things I do it quite often. The other things I do is still in the same theme, I guess. I just go talk to people. Yeah. Like as John said, like we met at some of the networking event or some conference like long time ago. And I'm introvert, but I still try to gather all the courage I have and go talk to people because I really want to learn. I really want to open more doors and expand my horizon. And I just do it and go from there. And also I'm just be honest and try not to behave like I know everything. I would rather think like I know nothing. Teach me, tell me, educate me, guide me. But also as I learn from so many resources, I probably start pitching you that why we don't consider this. I read about this. What's the pros and the cons? That kind of hard questions may pop up. So yeah, people that just bear with me during my learning journey.
That's great. Yeah, I think the maintaining curiosity is a great philosophy, and I love your enthusiasm for that as well. Thinking about going back to the skills of the operations side, and we can't have a conversation these days without AI. I'm curious where do you see AI fitting into the picture of operations? And maybe you don't. I mean, it might be too early days where, a lot of companies have tech debt and they're not able to adopt AI like they talk about it, but they're not there yet. But how are you viewing AI, especially relative to a RevOps role? Like, where does it fit in or not fit in the future?
I would say, to me, it's still part of the tech solution available in a repository, because AI needs to ingest something to spit out the output, right? So it's still the same concept of garbage in, garbage out. So that's definitely one. And also, everyone talks about AI, but that's just a piece of technology. We need to actually think about use case and what we are trying to achieve by leveraging AI. Yeah, like I've been approached by so many AI companies trying to trying to sell me. AI can solve this and that and that and that. And that actually made me think, like, yes, all so cool, but I have this much of limited budget and limited time and resources. I cannot burn out myself. I cannot burn out my team, etc. I cannot go get all these AI tools and do the cool things. Like, I still need to figure out what's the best, like, biggest needle mover. That kind of mentality, mindset, is still like applicable from the, say, pre-AE world. So that's how I'm seeing. Having said that, AI has helped me a little bit here and there too. Like, one use case, and I laughed so much because I come from marketing ops, but I hate writing emails, especially after doing like spreadsheet or like like automation, logic building, that kind of brain usage is down. I cannot, sorry, write even one sentence sometimes. So I just like drop my thought into the AI solutions and like, yeah, can we make it into the pretty email? I do it here and there. The other thing I do here and there is, like, I want to achieve this kind of automation logic and challenge me what I'm missing. Or here is the things like I'm pretty sure would happen and how can I mitigate the risk, that kind of things. Not just like build me this stuff, but more like use it like a sounding board, so to speak. That's been pretty useful for me so far. Yeah.
Well, and thinking about, all the different options you have, and I can't imagine, people in operations roles have a terrible time, I'm sure, with 8,000 different companies coming at you, trying to get you to spend your money.
Right.
Now that we are actively thinking about budget for 2026, trying to say, what do we need? What are our goals? And what are the best ways to invest for next year? What are some of the ways that you're thinking about budgeting for the operations function? And what's advice you would offer to others who are trying to put together a budget for next year, trying to be good stewards of company resources that may be a little smaller than they were last year, or maybe the same, or in some happy cases, maybe they're growing. But how do you do the best you can with what you're getting? And think about, how you can make a case for what you need versus maybe what others are asking for.
Great question. And that kind of budget conversation is not just seasonal, like we need to do it right now. Like, it's kind of like ongoing thing, in my opinion, especially in the ops world, where like the easiest one, like tech renewal happens throughout the year, right? We don't really have control on when that happens. So yeah, I'm just looking at that kind of numbers all the time and see like what we can enhance with little additional budget. What can we scale down or completely drop? And what's the trade-off of doing that? Yeah. And one thing, like one example is one company, the company has been using some tool A, but the use case of this tool A shrunk down probably from when they bought the tool. So the team thought, oh, we can just ditch it. But I had to tell them, like, well, if you ditch it, here are the potential consequences of like data loss and this and that and that. And to replace that piece with other tool or even in-house build, here are the risk factors, here are the potential issues. And these days, like a lot of solutions are becoming more and more like user-friendly in a way to like build better and customizable, but still it's not easy to replace one thing to the other. And especially if we want to do it in-house, you got consider about maintenance cost, obviously, but also like how you want to keep evangelizing that kind of area. And where you think like, I don't know how many MarTech solutions are there in the world these days. I kind of lost track of it, but you couldn't keep doing it all by yourself. Yeah, so that kind of like trade-off, not just like a budget, like dollar value and ROI, but also what's the hidden cost? What's the the overarching like basically cost of serve, so to speak, is like something to consider as well. Yeah.
Yeah, you bring up a good point about the hidden costs, and that's a theme that we've heard before, where even CFOs look for kind of like shadow costs of people. Sometimes just present the hard numbers of here's the cost, here's the ROI, here's the cost in a very like narrow box, and there's a lot of hidden costs that people really don't think through. So thinking through that could be really valuable. And even going back to your prior answer on AI, sometimes I think, and you see this a little bit with MarTech tools, where people's appetite to shop for them is unending, but the ability to integrate and operationalize those tools, which you kind of said with AI, like, hey, it's great that all these AI tools are out there, but one, I don't have a lot of budget, and I think you were also kind of saying, I can't possibly take all these AI tools and operationalize them because there's just not enough. There's not enough capacity to do that. So it's a really interesting time, and I noticed even when I was at Pavilion. I'm a Pavilion member. I've been so for a couple of years. Great community. Went to one of their events, and I had sat in a round table, and I asked a similar question that Meg just asked you, Kanako, in terms of like adoption of AI, and not one of the enterprise roundtable people said, "Hey, I'm going to adopt AI because I just got so much on my plate right now that there's no way I could even absorb it." So it's really interesting to think through, like, will these point AI solutions get adopted, or will they be bundled into existing MarTech stack where, and maybe PathFactory is an example of that, where you have AI already built in. It might be an easier sell than a brand new company with a new workflow or new process. Anyway, I'm talking a lot, but do you have a point of view? Like, does PathFactory kind of absorb AI, if into their product as part of that, or how they might be thinking about it as they're approaching their customers?
Yeah, our solution has AI capability too as well. And yeah, I think I believe we are quite leading the pack from this domain of MarTech solution having AI offering. Yeah, so that's definitely an interesting thing. And of course, I want to drink my own champagne, so I'm trying to use it for our marketing as well. So that's
Sure.
also the learning curve. Yeah. And yes, the bandwidth is actually a big factor to bring on any type of tech tools or any new processes, right? It's not just like you build a process or you bring in and plug and play and done. Somebody has to keep eyes on it. Somebody has to monitor it. Somebody has to troubleshoot it. And surely, like especially with like new AI, the new things like AI, like your in-house folks may not have a good expertise to really do it, or like all by themselves. Then, yeah, sure, we can bring in third party, but then somebody has to manage the third party. So it's still not like completely hands off and all like running smoothly with while I'm just sipping my own champagne type of thing. Yeah. So that kind of balancing act is definitely there still.
Well, and one last question. I know we're coming up on the end of our time together, but I'm curious to know, how do you keep the business informed about what the operations function is delivering? Maybe what you're working on, the impact that you're having. What's advice you'd offer to other operations leaders to say, here are some good things to be sharing with the business to make sure they know the contribution that you and your team are making?
Yeah, great question. And I'm still learning how best I can do that. Yeah, but one thing I try to do anytime like I join a new org is, what are the big needle movers that the companies are thinking from ops perspective? That's definitely one. That would inform my roadmap. And also I would probably do the audit, check around, talk to people to really kind of like not really pressure test, but kind of like that, to see like, are these big initiatives that somebody set up for me really a big needle mover? And from there, I would like establish a roadmap, that kind of things, and start building the communication cadence or whatnot to really communicate like, this is what I'm working on, and that's why I cannot take on like 20 other things that are coming to me randomly. And that kind of communication needs to be ongoing, but also on not just randomly, but on a regular basis. Yeah. And it could be, and then how we deliver that kind of things, deliver that kind of message, really depends on who we are talking to. At the end of the day, if the recipient is not receiving my message, it's moot. So it could be like, I don't know, bi-weekly email communication. It could be a quick video talk through. Yeah, and then each leader may be different. I just try the different way to try to push my message to the right audience in the easiest way possible for them. Yeah, the stakeholders are busy people, right? They get way more emails than me or Slack messages. Yeah, so I need to work the way that they can easily consume my message. Yeah, and that kind of comes back to how marketing should be.
Right on to that, for sure. Know your audience and make sure what you're doing is actually helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Good advice in any situation.
Exactly. I was just thinking about how frequently too an operations function can be kind of like the catching glove for every initiative and every. So I liked how you talked about prioritizing what's needle moving versus not, because I don't know. I just get the sense going, and it's been a few years since I've been an operator, but even observing in our clients too, that operations kind of gets the brunt of every change, every acquisition, every data, initiative, anything should involve the operations side. So I think you said it really well about prioritizing kind of the workflow. I guess last question on my part. I know we're at time here, but any closing thoughts that you want to end with, or you feel like we've covered the translation piece pretty thoroughly today?
Yeah, I think so. Well, I guess like one piece of advice to anyone, unsolicited advice maybe, is like, stay curious and open-minded. That's like my theme, like my baseline thing, and that drives my behavior to go talk to people, learn from others, sign up for newsletters, try to join these Friday sessions. Sorry, I probably missed more than I hoped, but still, I learned a lot from this show, for example. So, yeah.
Well, we're grateful that you've been a longtime fan of ours, and we know we've seen you in other sessions. So we're grateful that you're able to invest the time today, Kanako, and we'll continue the dialogue. So thank you for investing the time.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Great.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. And thanks everybody for listening today. We appreciate you too.
Yep. And next week we're off with July 4th. So have a great holiday, and we will pick up after that point. Have a great holiday.
Happy Friday, everyone.